Sarah's heart raced as she stood at the edge of the cliff, the wind whipping through her hair and the waves crashing violently against the rocks below. She glanced back over her shoulder, searching for any sign of the men closing in on her. But there was nothing, only the vast expanse of the ocean behind her, stretching out towards the horizon. She knew she couldn't run any further. They had been chasing her for days, relentless in their pursuit. Her only choice now was to confront them head-on, to stand her ground and face whatever fate awaited her. Taking a deep breath, Sarah squared her shoulders and turned back to the cliff's edge. The roar of the waves filled her ears as she closed her eyes and prepared to leap. The adrenaline surged through her veins, drowning out the fear and doubt that had plagued her every step of the way. And then, with a cry that was both a battle cry and a prayer, she launched herself into the void. For a moment, she hung suspended in midair, weightless and free. The world around her seemed to slow down, the chaos and danger fading away into a distant blur. And then gravity took hold, pulling her down towards the churning waters below. The impact was like a thunderclap, sending shock waves of pain through her body as she plunged beneath the surface. The cold water closed in around her, wrapping her in darkness and silence. Panic welled up inside her, threatening to overwhelm her senses. But Sarah fought against it, kicking frantically towards the surface. She broke through the water with a gasp, her lungs burning for air. The waves tossed her like a rag doll, dragging her this way and that as she struggled to stay afloat. And then, just when she thought she couldn't hold on any longer, a strong hand reached out and grasped her arm. Sarah's eyes widened in shock as she was pulled towards a waiting boat, a lifeline in the midst of the storm. As she collapsed onto the deck, gasping for breath and shaking with exhaustion, Sarah glanced up to see her savior, a rugged man with piercing eyes and a grim set to his jaw. He said nothing, only nodded towards the horizon where dark clouds were gathering, a storm on the horizon. Sarah knew that her trials were far from over, but as she looked into the man's eyes, she felt a flicker of hope ignite within her once more. Perhaps, with his help, she stood a chance against the storm that loomed ahead. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the sprawling city below, Ava's heart pounded with anticipation. She stood on the rooftop of the abandoned warehouse, her eyes fixed on the towering skyscraper in the distance. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for her entire life. Ava took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill her lungs. She checked her gear one last time, the ropes, the harness, the lockpick set. Everything was in place. She glanced back at her partner in crime, Luke, who flashed her a confident smile. "Ready?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant hum of the city. Ava nodded, her determination steely as she approached the edge of the rooftop. With a swift movement, she lowered herself over the edge, the city lights glimmering below her like a sea of stars. She began her descent, expertly navigating the crumbling brick facade of the building. Adrenaline surged through her veins as she rappelled down the side of the warehouse, her movements swift and precise. Each brick felt like a stepping stone towards her ultimate goal, the vault hidden deep within the skyscraper, rumored to contain a priceless treasure. As Ava reached the ground, she landed with a graceful thud, her heart racing with excitement. Luke landed beside her, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Without a word, they sprinted towards the skyscraper, blending into the shadows like ghosts in the night. The skyscraper loomed above them, its glass facade shimmering in the moonlight. Ava and Luke shared a knowing glance before slipping inside through a conveniently unlocked side entrance. They navigated the labyrinthine corridors with ease, their steps silent against the plush carpeting. Finally, they reached the vault, an imposing steel door that stood between them and their ultimate prize. With a flick of her wrist, Ava produced the lockpick set, her hands steady as she worked on the intricate mechanism. The sound of tumblers clicking into place filled the air, a symphony of success in the dead of night. With a final twist, the vault door swung open with a heavy creak, revealing the treasures hidden within. Gold bars glittered under the dim lights, priceless jewels winking in the darkness. Ava felt a surge of triumph wash over her. They had done it. But their victory was short-lived, as a sudden shout echoed through the vault, freezing them in place. Ava and Luke turned to see a group of armed guards rushing towards them, their eyes blazing with fury. "We've been caught," Luke whispered, his voice tinged with regret. But Ava's eyes glinted with determination. They may have been caught, but she was not about to give up without a fight. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the vast fields of lavender, Olivia stood at the edge of the cliff, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe what she had discovered earlier that day, a letter hidden in an old chest, revealing the truth about her family's dark past. Tears welled up in her eyes as memories flooded back, the mysterious disappearance of her parents when she was just a child, the whispers of scandal that had followed her family for years. And now, holding that letter in her hands, she finally understood the secrets that had been kept from her. Taking a deep breath, Olivia unfolded the letter and read the words written in elegant script. It was from her grandmother, revealing a long-buried truth that would change everything she thought she knew about her family. As she read on, the wind picked up, swirling around her and carrying the scent of lavender. A sense of urgency gripped her as she realized the implications of what she had just learned. She had to confront the past, to unravel the tangled web of lies that had haunted her for so long. Without hesitation, Olivia made a decision. She would seek out the answers, no matter the cost. With the letter clutched tightly in her hand, she strode back towards the crumbling estate that had once been her childhood home. The once grand mansion stood as a silent witness to the secrets hidden within its walls. As she pushed open the heavy oak door, the echoes of the past seemed to swirl around her. Shadows danced on the walls, whispering of betrayal and deceit. But Olivia was determined to uncover the truth, to break free from the chains of deception that had bound her family for generations. With each step she took, the weight of the past lifted from her shoulders. And as she reached the study where her grandmother's secrets lay buried, a glimmer of hope ignited within her. The truth may be painful, but Olivia knew that only by facing it head-on could she truly be free. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door and stepped inside. The room was shrouded in darkness, but Olivia's resolve burned bright. She would not be held captive by the sins of the past any longer. It was time to confront the ghosts that haunted her family and finally break free from the shadows that had cast a long, dark shadow over her life. As the sun set over the vast horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Amelia felt a surge of determination course through her veins. She stood at the edge of the abandoned warehouse, the place where her twin sister, Isabel, had been taken captive by the ruthless gang leader, Viper. With her heart pounding in her chest, Amelia silently made her way through the shadows, her mind focused on one thing only, saving her sister. As she crept closer to the warehouse, she could hear the faint sounds of muffled voices and footsteps coming from within. Taking a deep breath, Amelia pushed open the rusted door and stepped inside, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and adrenaline. The interior was dimly lit, with crates and boxes stacked haphazardly around the space. In the center of the room, Isabel was bound and gagged, her eyes wide with fear as she saw her sister enter. Without hesitation, Amelia sprinted towards Isabel, expertly cutting through the ropes that bound her. As soon as Isabel was free, the two sisters embraced, tears streaming down their faces as they held each other tight. But their moment of reunion was short-lived, as a menacing figure emerged from the shadows, Viper. He stood tall and imposing, a cruel smirk playing on his lips as he surveyed the scene before him. Well, if it isn't the brave little sister come to save the day," Viper sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "You may have rescued her this time, but mark my words, this isn't over." Amelia felt a surge of defiance rise within her, her eyes locking onto Viper's with unwavering determination. "You may have underestimated me once, but you won't make that mistake again. This ends now," she declared, her voice steady and strong. In one swift motion, Amelia lunged towards Viper, her fists flying as she unleashed a flurry of punches fueled by years of pent-up rage. Viper fought back fiercely, their bodies colliding in a chaotic dance of power and will. But Amelia refused to back down, her resolve unshakable as she fought tooth and nail to protect her sister. In the midst of the chaos, a sudden flash of light filled the room, blinding everyone momentarily. When Amelia's vision cleared, she found herself standing victorious, Viper lying defeated at her feet. Isabel rushed to her side, gratitude and admiration shining bright in her eyes. The sisters stood together, their bond stronger than ever, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they walked out of the warehouse into the cool night air, a sense of triumph and unity filled their hearts, knowing that they had emerged victorious against all odds. As the rain poured heavily outside, Sarah sat huddled on the couch, clutching the old family photo she had found earlier that day. The image of her mother smiling back at her through the worn-out frame brought a mix of emotions swirling within her: longing, sadness, and a glimmer of hope. Lost in her thoughts, Sarah didn't notice the faint sound of footsteps approaching her. It was only when a gentle hand rested on her shoulder that she looked up to see her father standing in front of her, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and regret. "Sarah, I'm so sorry," he began, his voice cracking with emotion. "I should have told you the truth a long time ago. Your mother, she didn't leave us. She passed away." Sarah felt her heart shatter into a million pieces as she listened to her father's words. All these years, she had carried the weight of abandonment on her shoulders, believing that her mother had chosen to leave them behind. And now, to learn the truth, it was almost too much to bear. But amidst the pain and the questions swirling in her mind, a sense of closure began to take root within her. The photo in her hands suddenly felt like a precious treasure, a connection to a woman she had never truly known but had missed every single day. With tears streaming down her face, Sarah looked up at her father and saw the raw vulnerability in his eyes. For the first time in years, she saw him not as the distant figure he had become, but as a man burdened by his own grief and mistakes. "I forgive you, Dad," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "And I forgive Mom, too. I just wish I had known the truth sooner." Her father's shoulders sagged with relief, and he sank down beside her on the couch, enveloping her in a long overdue hug. In that moment, the walls that had been built between them over the years began to crumble, brick by brick, until all that was left was a fragile sense of healing and understanding. As the rain continued to drum against the windows, father and daughter sat together in silence, finding solace in each other's presence and in the shared memories of a woman whose love had never truly left them. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the horizon, Rachel found herself standing at the edge of a cliff overlooking the turbulent ocean below. The salty breeze whipped through her hair, causing it to dance around her face in wild abandon. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart and calm the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. She had come here seeking solace, seeking answers to questions that haunted her every waking moment. The weight of the truth she had uncovered bore down on her shoulders like a heavy burden, threatening to crush her beneath its unbearable weight. How could everything she had believed in for so long be nothing but a lie? But deep down, she knew she couldn't deny the reality staring back at her with cold, unrelenting eyes. The pieces of the puzzle had slowly started to fall into place, revealing a picture she had never even dared to imagine in her worst nightmares. A single tear rolled down her cheek, glistening like a diamond in the fading light. She wiped it away fiercely, trying to steel herself against the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm her fragile resolve. She couldn't afford to break down now, not when everything was at stake. Taking a shaky breath, Rachel closed her eyes and let the sound of crashing waves below wash over her, filling her with a strange sense of peace. For the first time, in what felt like an eternity, she allowed herself to let go of the walls she had built around her heart and let the raw emotion spill out, like a river bursting its banks after a long, harsh winter. In that moment of vulnerability, she felt a strange sense of clarity wash over her, as if the universe was whispering secrets only she could hear. She knew what she had to do, even if it meant risking everything she held dear. The truth was a double-edged sword, cutting through illusions and falsehoods with brutal precision. With a newfound sense of determination burning in her heart, Rachel turned away from the cliff and faced the path that lay ahead, uncertain and fraught with danger. But she knew she had to keep moving forward, no matter how treacherous the road may be. The time for hiding in shadows was over. It was time to embrace the light, no matter how blinding it may be. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the peaceful town, Emily found herself standing in front of the old oak tree where she had shared countless memories with her best friend Sarah. Tears welled up in her eyes as she remembered the laughter, the secrets, and the dreams they had once shared under its sprawling branches. But today, there was no laughter. Only a heavy silence filled the air as Emily reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope containing a letter she had written to Sarah. With trembling hands, she unfolded the paper and began to read aloud, the words carrying the weight of her sorrow. Dear Sarah, I miss you more than words can express. The emptiness in my heart since you left has grown into a gaping void that no amount of time or distance can fill. Her voice cracked as she struggled to read through the tears blurring her vision. Memories of Sarah's bright smile and infectious laughter flooded her mind, making her ache for the friendship they once shared. As the last rays of sunlight faded into dusk, Emily made a decision. She would not let the pain of losing Sarah consume her any longer. With a renewed sense of determination, she folded the letter back into the envelope and secured it in the hollow of the oak tree, a silent tribute to the friendship that had once blossomed beneath its shade. Taking a deep breath, Emily whispered a final farewell to Sarah, feeling a sense of closure wash over her like a gentle wave. The weight that had been pressing down on her chest lifted, and for the first time since Sarah's departure, Emily felt a glimmer of hope flicker within her. With newfound strength and resolve, Emily turned away from the oak tree, her heart lighter than it had been in months. The road ahead was uncertain, but she knew that as long as she carried the memory of Sarah in her heart, she would never be truly alone. And so, under the watchful gaze of the stars twinkling above, Emily walked away from the oak tree, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and a renewed sense of purpose. The night air whispered a promise of new beginnings, and Emily embraced it with open arms, knowing that wherever life took her, Sarah would always be by her side in spirit. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the land, Sarah stood on the edge of the cliff, her heart pounding in her chest. She watched as the waves crashed against the rocks below, the sound of their tumultuous roar filling her ears. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the swirling emotions inside her. Her hands trembled as she clutched the letter in her hand, the words penned on the page tearing at her soul. It was a letter from her long-lost father, a man she had grown up believing had abandoned her and her mother. But the words on the page told a different story, a story of love, sacrifice, and regret. Tears stung Sarah's eyes as she read the words once more, feeling the weight of years of anger and hurt slowly lifting from her heart. She thought of all the times she had imagined confronting him, telling him how much he had hurt her. But now, faced with his words of apology and longing for reconciliation, she felt a wave of compassion wash over her. She closed her eyes, the salty breeze whipping her hair around her face, and made a decision. With a determined step, she marched back to her car, the letter clutched tightly in her hand. She had spent years harboring resentment and anger, but now she was ready to let it go. The drive to her father's house felt like a lifetime, each mile bringing her closer to a truth she had been denying for so long. When she finally arrived at his doorstep, her heart was racing, her palms sweaty. But as he opened the door and their eyes met, she saw the same pain and regret mirrored in his eyes. Without a word, she handed him the letter, her emotions too raw to speak. He took it from her trembling hands, his own hands shaking as he read the words he had written so long ago. And as he looked up at her, tears streaming down his face, Sarah saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. They stood there in silence for what felt like an eternity, the weight of their shared pain hanging heavy in the air. But in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, Sarah knew that they had been given a second chance. A chance to heal, to forgive, and to finally find the closure they both desperately needed. As the alarm blared through the quiet house, Sophie's heart raced. She sprang out of bed, her mind already calculating the fastest route to her daughter's room. The hallway seemed endless, the seconds stretching out as fear gnawed at her insides. Bursting into the room, she found it empty. Panic surged through her veins as she rushed to check the other rooms, her calls echoing through the silent house. Then, a faint sound caught her attention, a soft whimper coming from the closet. With trembling hands, Sophie flung open the door to find her daughter huddled in the corner, tears streaming down her cheeks. Relief flooded through Sophie as she enveloped her child in a tight embrace, murmuring soothing words and wiping away the tears. As the adrenaline ebbed away, questions surfaced in Sophie's mind. How had her daughter gotten into the closet? Why was she hiding? But before she could voice her thoughts, the sound of shattering glass erupted from downstairs, sending fresh waves of terror crashing over them. Heart pounding, Sophie whispered urgently to her daughter, guiding her to the window. With hands shaking but determined, she helped the frightened girl climb down the trellis, fear clawing at her chest at the thought of what awaited them below. Once they reached the ground safely, Sophie scanned the darkness for any sign of danger, her jaw set in determination. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, sending a chill down Sophie's spine. It was him, the man who haunted her nightmares, the one she had vowed to keep her daughter safe from at all costs. As he advanced towards them, a fierce protectiveness surged through Sophie, banishing her fear and replacing it with steely resolve. In a blur of movement, Sophie pushed her daughter behind her, standing between her child and the looming threat. Her voice quivered but held steady as she faced the man who had brought so much pain into their lives. "You will never hurt us again," she declared, her eyes blazing with a fire that refused to be extinguished. The man's laughter cut through the tense silence, a cruel sound that made Sophie's blood run cold. But she stood her ground, her love for her daughter giving her strength she never knew she had. And as the man lunged towards them, Sophie braced herself, ready to fight with every fiber of her being, to protect the one person she held most dear. The rain poured down in torrents, adding to the already somber mood that hung in the air. Lily stood at the edge of the cliff, her hair sticking to her face as tears mixed with raindrops. The wind howled around her, echoing the chaos in her heart. She had come so far, faced so many challenges, all for this moment. The moment when she would have to make the ultimate choice that would change everything. Her mind raced with doubts and fears, but deep within her, a quiet voice whispered, urging her to be brave. As she gazed out at the stormy sea below, memories flashed through her mind, memories of love, loss, betrayal, and redemption. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. But then a sudden burst of lightning illuminated the sky, casting a bright light on the path ahead. It was as if the universe was guiding her, showing her the way forward. With a deep breath, Lily made her decision. She let go of the past, of the pain and the regrets, and embraced the unknown future with open arms. And as she took a step back from the edge, a sense of peace washed over her, filling her with a newfound strength. The storm began to subside, the clouds parting to reveal a glimmer of sunlight breaking through. A rainbow arched across the sky, a symbol of hope and new beginnings. Lily smiled, feeling a sense of clarity she had never experienced before. She knew that the road ahead would be tough, filled with challenges and uncertainties. But she also knew that she was strong enough to face whatever came her way, as long as she stayed true to herself. As she turned to leave the cliff behind, a single tear rolled down her cheek, not of sadness, but of gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this moment of transformation. And with a heart full of courage and determination, Lily walked away, ready to embrace the future that awaited her.